Hey, good morning to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for the last day of July. It's July 31st, 2019. I am in Elk City, Oklahoma, working with three of my colleagues to do a test of our weather balloon project, the Herbie project, Hurricane Research Balloon. We're going to be launching it in a test operation today around 3 p.m. local time, somewhere around that time frame. From right here in Elk City, we have done the preparation work, done all the calculations, we have all the equipment together, and we have the crew together, 4 of us total, myself, Brent, Carrie, and Derek. And we're going to launch the balloon in a testing operation here. We do it in Oklahoma. Whenever we test, we try to do it out in the plains because it makes the recovery part much easier. There's less people. The terrain is flat. It's a pretty good grid system for driving northwest, southeast, etc., whatever you need to do. Pretty easy to get around. The only thing about it this time, it's going to be very hot. Forecast high of 100 degrees today here in Elk City, so that'll be fun. Luckily, we have lots of water to keep us hydrated. The goal is to test the payload, make sure everything works as it should, because we want to be able to do this in the eye of a hurricane. We've done that once before during Hurricane Nate back in 2017, but that was at night, so we really didn't get to see much with the pair of GoPros that's upon the payload. We did collect very good data, though, from the weather computer that's on board of the payload, but we want to do it in the daytime, and so we're testing a slightly new design of the payload. It's a little bit lighter, about 9 ounces lighter, and we've got some more tools in our toolbox, so to speak, that'll help us achieve an altitude of above 100,000 feet, which is our goal. So we've done everything we needed to do, filed the notice to airmen with the proper authorities, the NOTAM, so that everybody flying in and out of the area knows if they see a weather balloon go by that's the size of a house, they understand what that's all about. It does. The balloon expands as it gets into the higher altitudes, and then it eventually bursts, and we are able to track this all using satellite tracking as well as amateur radio tracking, what's called APRS. This is a very special event because we're going to bring it exclusively to our patrons on Patreon. So no matter what level you are on Patreon, I'm going to be posting a link there later that'll have the live camera shot from the ground. We don't stream live from the payload. We don't have the budget for that yet. But we will stream the ground operations live so that everybody watching can see what's going on, the recovery process, the whole thing. As soon as we start, you'll be able to watch it live exclusively on Patreon. So if you're a patron, go ahead and check out. If you haven't checked in a while, check the Patreon site and you'll see what we're doing today. And if you're not a patron, hey, now's a good time to sign up. Why not? It doesn't matter whether it's $1 or more. Yeah, everybody has access to this, and you're helping to make all of this possible. In fact, the other 3 people that are with me are themselves part of the crowdfunding effort. Okay, Brent from the U.S. Virgin Islands, Derek from South Dakota, and Carrie. All 3 of them are patrons. So there you go. Let's get rid of me. There's my introduction. We got a lot to talk about. I just want to let you know where I am and what I'm doing today. We'll get to the Atlantic in just a moment. First of all, in the Eastern Pacific, if it'll come up. I know that a lot of folks are, well, come on now. There we go. I knew you had it in you. A lot of folks watching from Hawaii about Erick here and Flossie. There's the Hawaiian Islands. Not to worry, the prognosis here is pretty good overall in terms of impacts. Erick's, still a pretty intense hurricane, of course. 125 mile per hour winds back to its east-southeast as Flossie, intensifying quickly as well. In terms of the track for both of these, Erick's going to pass fairly far to the south. Flossie maybe a little bit closer. But the overall impacts to the islands, an increase in swells, you probably know this already. I mean, folks out there are pretty in tune to this kind of thing. But for those of you that are traveling there that might be new to my videos, I want to make sure you know about the impacts. And in this case, you see two hurricanes heading towards Hawaii, and you might worry. Well, you don't have to worry about hurricane conditions. No. I mean, I can almost guarantee you that. You never say 100% in the weather unless it's actually raining, right? And then you can say, it's raining, it's 100% chance of rain. But, just want to bring me back on for a second, but just to understand there are other impacts. So yes, if you're going to Hawaii on vacation or business or whatever, and you end up going to the beach and you see some larger than normal swells coming in, and wave action along those beaches, especially the Big Island, as Erick goes by first and then Flossie, just remember there are other impacts here. First, the wave action and the surfers, of course, will love that, but you have to be very careful. There's a lot of energy in that water, and it can break your neck if those breaking waves happen to tumble you head first into the sand. Those waves can shove you up into rocks, and remember, there's a lot of volcanic rock in Hawaii. That's why Hawaii's there. So waves, maybe some rain bands coming through eventually, an increase in moisture, a change in wind direction. There will be some sensible impacts that you can feel and sense. We call that sensible weather. And then you just have to use common sense when dealing with that, all right? So if you're heading out there or you are there already, just be careful, especially in the surf, because it can get overwhelming. All right, in the Atlantic, we have, this is no longer of concern, 0% chance of development, but that system, what was 95L, did bring some fairly heavy rain, and here we go. We talk about impacts again, and sensible impacts that you can feel. Puerto Rico, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, and vicinity all had some rainfall, and in many cases here, much needed rainfall. And this from the National Weather Service in Puerto Rico showing how much rain fell. And in some cases, we're talking about more than 7 inches of rain on the eastern side of Puerto Rico, and then over in the Virgin Islands, in some cases 1 to 2 inches of rain fell. There was some flooding going on. I heard from several people across the region. We were able to monitor some of that rainfall from our live webcam that we have over in St. John, thanks to Brent, who has a webcam there in Fish Bay, one of our Nest cams. Pardon. I told you it's hot and dusty here in Oklahoma. And so there you go. 95L brought some heavy rain, and just goes to show, right, that these systems, whether they are tropical waves, tropical disturbances, or bona fide hurricanes, you got to pay attention to them. So the next area that we need to watch, whoops, let's get rid of this. Oh yeah, I forgot I had satellite images. I will go over this real quick. There's Erick, and again, large system, in the atmosphere will generate some sensible weather, as I talked about, but luckily the wind shear is coming, and Erick will run into that and weaken, but there will be some impacts from those waves. And then in comes Flossie here over on stage right. Get rid of that tab. I got a lot of tabs today. Look at that. They're all stretched out all the way over here. I had to go off the scale, so to speak, with today's lineup. There's Flossie trying to get his act together as well. And, this is an uptick in activity. I'm seeing where the Western Pacific is going to light up with several typhoons. Josh Morgerman tweeting about that from time to time, as is James Reynolds over there in Japan. Those guys keeping an eye on that. So globally, isn't it interesting? Everything was kind of quiet, but now things are starting to pick up on a global scale. The Eastern Pacific, the Atlantic trying to come to life, and of course the West Pacific as well as we get into August. So in the Atlantic, we'll take a look at the satellite in a moment. We do have this area here with a 50% chance of development over the next 5 days. It's not going to be too long that this will be labeled an area of investigation or an invest. More and more people talk about that now, these L's, these 95Ls, 91L, whatever. And that's just a labeling mechanism when something warrants extra attention or investigation. In the Atlantic, it gets the letter L for Atlantic, and they use the numbers 90 through 99. I don't really know where that came from exactly. Maybe one day somebody will have an answer for that, like why did they choose 90 through 99 instead of 20 through 29 or whatever. But it doesn't matter. That's the overall methodology instead of just saying a disturbance here and this disturbance there and whatnot. It's just a way to keep up with what's what, but because of social media and the readily available access to all this data, a lot of people know now, hey, what's going to happen with 95L or whatever. It's become part of the vernacular. So this will eventually be 96L, and we'll see what happens with it. The forecast from the Hurricane Center indicating, again, a 50% chance of development as it moves on off towards the west and west-northwest with time. And the global models are starting to pick up on this, the European and the GFS. I'll show you that at the end here. Definitely sniffing this out as a strong impulse of energy that this was coming off Africa late July. And the thing that really interests me the most at the moment, until this becomes a named storm, assuming it does, or whatever, we get to all that later, what you need to take away from this, and what I'm taking away from this as somebody that tracks these things as part of my profession, as well as a deep interest of mine. You know, I live on the coast too. Where is this happening? All right, I want you to look at this and think about the bigger picture. This is taking place, trying to take shape in the deep tropics. This is not coming together up between Bermuda and Cape Hatteras, up here in the subtropics, like we saw last year with some of those systems, even Beryl that formed down in the deep tropics and then kind of weakened, and it got its act together again off the east coast. And then Chris and Debbie, I think it was, from memory serves, there was a lot of subtropical activity by this time last year. You remember that? Through the month of August, too. It doesn't mean there won't be this year, but to see this trying to take shape and such a vigorous tropical wave, wait till I show you the precipitable water analysis on it. This is a sign to me, because it's not quite August yet, that things are going to get interesting down the road, and not necessarily in a good way. And we really need to pay attention to this going forward. So here's the satellite picture, series of pictures, that is, from Levi Cowan's site. There it is, and that is a large envelope of energy. You know, that's a large area of influence in the atmosphere that is going to try to bundle that heat energy and make something of itself. The leftovers of what was 95L hanging around in here somewhere never really became anything other than the rainfall that it dropped. And that was some beneficial rain. You know, that's needed. It obviously caused some flooding, but hey, you need the rainfall. So you guys in the islands here, you know, certainly, you don't need Mark to tell you, but keep an eye on this, because it's going to be heading in your general direction over the next several days. And remember, it doesn't have to be a hurricane to bother you. So let's see how this evolves. And that being said, let's start looking at some of the analysis products here. First, no appreciable energy or vorticity associated with what was formerly 95L. Why don't we use purple? Right in here, kind of gone, so that's good. There is energy, though, trying to gather in association with future 96L. Who knows, maybe it'll be designated 96L by the time I finish this update. But that's the area to watch right there. This is the vorticity signature, or spin in the atmosphere. And we can look at this on a daily basis. So when I show you this tomorrow, let's look and see how this changes with time. All right? So now the precipitable water. This is a favorite of mine, a wonderful product from the University of Wisconsin site. And what we're looking at here is the total precipitable water in the atmosphere. How much juice could be squeezed out of the lemon, so to speak. I don't want to refer to the earth as a lemon, but you get the idea. Okay, if the earth was a fruit and the atmosphere was the meat of the fruit, like the meat, I guess you call it that, or the flesh of an orange or a lemon, a citrus fruit, and you squeezed it, how much water would come out? Precipitable water. And this gives us a good look at that. The blues, any shade of blue there into purple, are very low precipitable water values, meaning the air is generally dry. And different layers of the atmosphere can have different precipitable water values. That's another important thing to note. In this case, we're looking down in the tropics. and the total precipitable water in the water column is very high. In fact, on the other end of the scale, you have the blues and purples. Let's choose white for my drawing tool. These blues and purples represent very dry air, low precipitable water values all through here. But what about that purple right there at the end of the animation? That's not dry. That's the other end of the scale. That is precipitable water in excess of 70 millimeters, all right, or 3 inches, and that is juicy. That's the bottom line. So I look at this and I say, okay, is the tropical wave dry? Is it struggling with moisture? And it's not. It's very, very energized with a lot of moisture, and in this case, moisture equals energy, because in that moisture is stored the latent heat in the lower atmosphere that drives these things. So you can also see the rotation. I mean, clearly over the last 24 hours or so, you can see the broad turning of the system, the large tropical wave of energy moving across there with high precipitable water. So that's a check mark, so to speak. Boom, let's get rid of that. A little sneak preview as to what's coming. All right, so what's going to happen? Well, again, the global model's generally picking up on this system developing. Right now, it's in the formative stage. We all know that. So the models are going to struggle until more organization comes from the system, assuming that it does. It does not mean that this has to develop. So don't confuse, something could develop with that means it's going to develop. It doesn't have to. The global models are simply simulations of the atmosphere using numeric prediction, okay? And these are just predictions based on the input that was put in. Input that gets put in today could change the output for later. So things do change. Keep that in mind. So this is not a guarantee. So what are we looking at? Well, let's don't look at me just for a moment so we can look at the full chart. This is the ECMWF, the European model as we call it. And this is last night's run at 850 millibars of the atmosphere, or about 5,000 feet up, which when we launch that weather balloon today will be a little bit more comfortable than it is down here at the surface. It is going to be toasty out there. Nice in the hotel room. So we're initial conditions here, and then let's see, where are we? Yeah, that's the analysis last night. So there's the envelope of energy right there that we're looking at in the Atlantic. All right, and here's your outline generally of the big old subtropical ridge, and this will expand and contract and change its shape and so forth and so on. So here's 24 hours, so this would be tonight. Okay, so this is 24 hours later, so this is tonight. Wednesday night into Thursday, as you would say. And you can see the energy down there, right? There it is right there. Still hanging on, as you would expect. Finally, 48 hours out, 72 hours out, 96. And at this point, it starts to look more organized in the model, the simulation here. And you can see the shape of the overall high pressure area, very large. But remember, these areas expand and contract as other forces in the atmosphere act upon them. But it acts like a large block, if you will, that, this area is high pressure and this is lower pressure. And so this has to go around the high pressure. So if this never ever moved at all, and this was absolutely solid like a mountain, a granite mountain, then this area of low pressure would just move around the edge of it, and like that, generally speaking. Okay, something like that. But that's not the case. These things breathe in and out, so to speak. They inhale and they exhale, and they expand and contract and change, and then all the time that that's happening, this changes. So this is what we have at 96 hours, all right? So this is valid Saturday night, this is Sunday night, and then finally Monday night. And you can see that the stronger part of the ridging is still back over the east central Atlantic, as indicated by these height lines. It's like a topographic map of the atmosphere. And so when you see these height lines, you get an idea of how much pressure there is, how much how thick the high pressure is in the atmosphere. Even though this is showing isobars at the surface, it still shows me the strength of the ridge. Okay, we're looking at vorticity at 5,000 feet, but surface pressure, I mean, I get that, but you still get the idea that the pressure is stronger at the surface. These are isobars, not height lines. I was mistaken. But it shows that the stronger of the ridging is taking place over here, at least at the surface. I know I kind of screwed that up a little bit. That's okay. We'll be able to fix it in the days to come. I'll make sure I get it right. We are looking at one layer of the atmosphere with regards to this energy, and another layer, the surface, in regards to the shape of the ridge. But the general idea is we don't see very strong ridging sitting over here, where this connects, and you have another isobar and 1026, 1028 millibars there, which would drive this west. That's what I'm getting at. This is going to gain latitude unless the ridge gets stronger. So let's go on to day 7. Well, it's trying a little bit. You see it expands west just a little bit, and these are all just little nuances that, I mean, come on, this is a week out. But these are things that we will watch. These are sort of your keys to the game. And at the same time, you notice with our system, it's definitely starting to get its act together here just north of the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, the Northeast Caribbean, by a week. Now, keep in mind, this could come in a little bit more south. It could come in more north. It could be much weaker. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. This is what the model is indicating from last night. You know how this goes. We're going to be talking about this for days. Finally, at day 8, and then finally day 9, a little bit more of an extension of the ridge over near Bermuda, classic Bermuda high, but it's not very strong. It's not ridging its way over to the west more. And we'll wait and see. This is still so far out in time. I mean, good grief, this is 9 days, and then there's 10 days out. All right, and just for comparative purposes, let's look at the GFS. At the same initial time, last night's run, or no, this probably was the 6Z. Yeah, this is the 6Z run. It's fine, it's just a few hours later, 10 days out roughly. Very similar position. You got to admit, that's pretty remarkable. You don't have one 700 miles away or whatever, and the shape and the look of the ridging is similar, so forth and so on. So, what do we take away from this? What should you be, all right, what is Mark's point? What do we all learn from this? Something's trying to develop in the tropics. It may be heading in the general direction of the Lesser Antilles, the islands of the Caribbean there, more than likely the Northeast Caribbean. Could be a rainmaker for some of the islands, maybe send some additional wave action if it develops, and maybe, as the GFS is indicating, it could become fairly strong in the southwest Atlantic, somewhere in the vicinity north of the Bahamas. Now, a lot will have to do with how fast this system comes together, if at all, the ridge of high pressure, this big balloon of air out over the Atlantic, and what it does over the next few days. As we have seen, a lot of times, early on, recurvature seems inevitable. It's going to recurve around that ridge. But then later on, oh, wait a minute, the ridge looks like it's going to be stronger. Remember Florence last year? And I'm not saying this will be another Florence, but you just, when people start saying a week out, just like when they say, oh, it's going to hit, when they start, oh, it's a fish storm, it's going to recurve. How many people said that about Florence? How many people said that about Francis in 2004? So and it goes the other way. When you see something barreling in, and it's hard to cite. I mean, usually when they do that, they come barreling in. But it's these recurves. We just got to make sure we balance what some people wish cast. They hope that it doesn't hit, so they let their bias that they don't want the hurricane to hit, and they latch on to what's happening now for something that's forecast in the simulations to happen in a week, because it shows a favorable outcome for them. No hurricane hitting somewhere. And I understand that. You want to latch on to the positive. But just keep in mind, things change. and you never know. All right, so we'll be watching this very closely. Obviously, I'll be on top of it after today's launch, and tomorrow, etc. I'll be doing updates on it. So just a quick reminder, Patreon, this is a lot of how we are funding what we do. It is a great interactive way for us to communicate with you, and I'm like the front man of the band, if you will. I got a great team that's helping me, and so when I say us, that's what I mean. I focus it here, and it's like its own little encapsulated social media world. People can interact with us. I can post stuff very similar to what you might see on Twitter, almost like a WordPress format, and some of these I can make public so everybody can see them, and some of these posts are just for patrons, and it's really nice. So if you're wanting to help out with our effort and become a part of something absolutely incredible, I mean, what we are doing with the remote camera project, the interactivity, the science that we're contributing to, I mean, come on, we're like probably the only people in the world that are doing something like this to this extent, and a lot of it's possible because of that crowdfunding. So thank you all very much for being a part of it. All right, so I'm going to wrap all this up and get ready to get all of our equipment together and head out into the heat. We plan to launch around 3 p.m. Oklahoma time, Central Time, and the balloon will take about 2 hours to reach burst altitude if all goes well. So we'll see what happens. Sometime tomorrow afternoon I'll post some clips on social media, etc., and of course for our patrons, because you're helping to cover the cost of all this, you'll have access to it first because this is your investment. So I thank you, and we have an exciting day ahead. All right, so we'll watch the tropics, see what's developing. It's almost August. You know that means eventually things are going to have to get busy, and we'll just see what's happening. I'll be on top of it. That much I can promise you. Have a good rest of your Wednesday afternoon. As always, I appreciate you tuning in from wherever and whatever device you're using. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.